Hello, students. This is a lecture by Becky Benavides. And just a word on Becky before we get started. Becky is a writer and broadcast producer. She's a third-generation San Antonian and a fourth-generation Texan. After working in high-profile ad agencies in Austin and San Antonio for many years, she opened her own writing, producing, and creative communications consultancy service in 2003. Now, the body of work that Becky is probably most well known for is her writing for the San Antonio Convention and Visitors Bureau. She worked on this account for a total of almost 20 years at two different ad agencies. Becky has an instinct and inclination for the art of storytelling, and she also collects things that deeply interest her. So working on the Convention Bureau account led her to amass a very large personal library of books, articles, brochures, and clippings on the thousands of fascinating stories that make up the history of San Antonio. Now, since starting her writing and producing company, in addition to advertising, Becky has branched out in new creative directions. She's currently developing an animated feature film with animation partners in Los Angeles, and she's also developing a live comedy show for Las Vegas with a group of producers in Los Angeles. Even more recently, she became involved in an educational book that is tied to the animated movie that is in development. Over the years, Becky's work has won multiple gold and silver awards from New York One Show, multiple national Addies, and gold and silver awards from the New York Art Directors Show. She's also been named to Adweek magazine's Creative All-Star team and served as a judge for the prestigious Communication Arts Advertising Annual. So that's the Becky Benavides story. So now for the stories that Becky wants to tell you.
Hi, my name is Becky Benavides, and I'm not an animator, but I work closely with animators and many other types of creative people. Some of the stuff I'm going to tell you today is common sense. Maybe what I'm going to say will sound very obvious, but my experience is that sometimes common sense doesn't seem to be all that common. So I'm going to start off by telling you there's this overall arc that's really, really important. And that is, when you are learning, when you are a student, you need to set some habits in place that will stand you in good stead throughout your career. And that is, volunteer to help other creative people with their worthy passion projects without a thought of gain for yourself. And you're going to find out something wonderful happens. It's going to be very surprising in some really good ways that you never expected. In fact, an animated movie that I am in development now that I'm working on, it all happened because I was talking to someone at a gathering, and we were having a conversation about children's literature. She was another writer. And I told her how much I loved children's literature, because it seemed to have far fewer restrictions on it than other kinds of literature sometimes. And she told me, she said, "Oh, I need to introduce you to Michael, because he has written some wonderful children's stories. You might be able to give him some pointers to how to make that happen." I wasn't sure that I could do that, but I told her, because I respected her as a writer and her taste, I decided to go ahead and meet him and look at his stories. Let me tell you, I was absolutely blown away. And I told him after I read these first stories, I said, you haven't written a book here. What you've written here is the beginnings of a movie or a TV show or something like that. This is written like it could be filmed or made into an animated movie. So slowly, little by little, the project began developing along with some people who own an animation studio in Los Angeles. And so that's how just volunteering to help somebody else do something with their passion project has turned into the creative adventure of my life. I'm getting to do something I would have never, ever gotten to do otherwise. So what I'm saying is just volunteer. If you see somebody has a project that seems really cool and that you like, help them with it. Offer to help them for no gain other than just because that's karma. Okay? That's generating good karma for yourself and for the world. Now, talking about generating ideas. Michael Barrett's whole idea for the Wallabies, this Wallaby story, happened when he was talking to another writer. They were talking about ways to generate ideas, especially when you're blocked and just can't come up with anything. And he proposed to this other writer that to just take 2 or 3 interesting words and using them as a base, write a story using those words. Start with those 2 words. And the other writer said, well, like, what kind of words? Michael said, oh, I don't know, like Wallaby and Zeppelin. And then he decided to prove that it could be done that way. So that's how he started the whole Wallaby idea. Another way to generate ideas is to look at something that catches your interest. Stare at it. Just stare at it. If you see something that's visual or just catches your interest, just keep looking at it and let it tell you its story. And write a story based on what happens when your brain starts working. The next thing is, I can show you an example of that. There's a German artist painter named Michael Soa. He has these wonderful images, no words, just images. And he did this book. We fell in love with the lighting and the look and the slightly off-kilter images in this book. It went a long way into inspiring what the Wallabies' lighting and attitude was going to be like visually. So that's another technique. Now, I had done some animation before in terms of I was in advertising and had done some animated commercials. However, when I was getting started on putting this movie into development, I had to learn how to do a budget for an animation because I had never done one before. And I can remember my partners, the animation partners, we were having a discussion about the difference between the AICP budget and an animated movie budget, and what was the difference and what was there and what was not there. That's when they were describing to me different things, and I said, okay, well, what about insurance? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. We don't have to have weather insurance because we're not shooting outside, so that doesn't pertain. And then they started talking about characters and all this other kind of stuff, and I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, animators are kind of like God because they have much more control over their universe than a live-action filmmaker does. There's no worrying about weather. There's no worrying about finding the right person who looks right and can act the part and all this other kind of stuff. Is that you can create all. So, animators have a lot of power that you don't even realize exists. Now, I'm going to have Randy take you through a show and tell here. I want to show you a demo. I'm going to start with the end product, and then we're going to work our way backwards. First, I want Randy to show you the Harry Conan demo.
So you think I'm alone, but being alone's the only way to be. When you step outside, you spend life fighting for your sanity. This is a cold war, you better know what you're fighting.
Harry is the lead animator on this project, and he did a slightly less than 1 minute demo so that we could show this to studios and investors and things like that to give them a sense of what the movie would look like without actually having the gajillions of dollars necessary to make the whole movie. So this is just a little taste of the movie.
Great blazes! The fig mango chutney! My jacket's unspiffy! Fetch me a spare boy!
Yes, sir, in a jiffy.
And what you've seen there, I want to work backwards. And that is, I want to show you what the process was in terms of the character design. For instance, first we met with Jim Feely, who is a character creator and designer, really wonderfully talented person. He's had a major career. He brought in his portfolio. And we looked through all the portfolio, and I made copies of the pieces of the portfolio that I thought were most relevant for one reason or another to our story. So if you look through Jim Feely's portfolio samples, you'll get a sense of all the different kinds of characters he created. You'll understand how he has a wide range. He can do evil, and he can do funny, and he can do pompous, and his characters capture character in a very wonderful way. The next thing I'm going to show you is Jim Feely's characters that he developed for the Wallabies movie. He is the Wallabies, Sheila, the mommy Wallaby, and the baby Wallaby. So, and we went through all the different looks to see which ones seemed to be to best capture the character of the deal. And we settled on certain ones. Sheila is the mommy, and Josie is the baby Wallaby, little girl baby Wallaby. So it's mommy and little girl. They are the primary characters. We also developed a character called Tommy, and he is kind of a, I don't know how to describe Tommy except that he's kind of slow, but he's sharp. It's just that you think maybe he's not, but he is. The cover of him misleads you. The book is different from the cover. The other characters were two evil twin brothers. They are the villains of the story. Then there's also the captain, who is very pompous, and he owns a Zeppelin. And he is totally an egotist, and it's all about me for him. He wants to become famous. His goal is to become famous and to make a lot of money, but mostly famous. He's really interested in fame. Then there's another character who is a little-known critter called a pygmy jerboa. Now, there are all kinds of jerboas, but the pygmy jerboa is the world's smallest rodent. They're in the deserts of Afghanistan and Pakistan and all the Stan countries, okay? They look like they're very, very small, just maybe a couple inches long, except very long tails with a little tuft of fur at the end, and they have these wonderful whiskery mustaches and these giant dark eyes and these incredible ears, and they look kind of like a mouse, but yet they have hind legs like a kangaroo or a wallaby, and they are incredible jumpers. So we decided to make this pygmy wallaby, one of the characters, his name is Jeromeo Jerboa, and he is brilliant. He is a mega brain, and he is an engineer, and he is also a Zeppelin pilot. He is also kind of the storyteller of the story in a sort of way, not exactly. But he definitely has his points of view about all the characters around him, and he's not shy about expressing his opinions, and also making sure that only good things happen and the evil guys don't get their way. The next thing I want to show you is what is called, in live-action films and stuff like that, they're called treatments. But animators call these things story Bibles. They're put together like a book, and they're kind of a slick little book that talks about the characters, that shows the characters, that has different stills of scenes, the philosophy behind the movie. And this is a sales piece. This is a marketing piece that you use when you're presenting the idea along with the demo to a potential studio or investor. I included some of Michael's original story about the Wallabies, so he's written several, and also some other Wallaby philosophy and attitude materials. In pitching the Wallaby movie during the development process, people would ask us questions. And so we would, if the question deserved a lot of thought in terms of an answer, we would answer the question with a little essay. There's one in there called Why Wallabies? Why not some other characters? That kind of thing. Now, you've seen all the Wallaby stuff, I think. Next, we're going to move into something about working in animation when you get into the real world. Welcome to the collision of art and commerce. Right now, while you're in school, it's all about the art part. But when you get a job, commerce pushes its way in and stays. You can't wish it or ignore it away. You cannot fight it. So learn how to join it and get along with it. Become an artist/business person. Your head and your heart should be working together, not battling it out for supremacy. It's called show business because it's the show and it's business. So you can't separate one from another. You have to make your peace with it. Meet or beat deadlines. I vividly remember my first day in art school. I was at UT Austin, and I was taking Dr. Leonard Rubin's concept and art direction class. And he started things off by saying, there is only one excuse for missing a deadline. It is death, and it is yours. Why do you think they call them deadlines? At that point, he announced that if anybody in the room had a problem with making deadlines and turning things in on time, they should leave right then and go drop the class. A lot of people got up and left. That was the first test. He was a very tough teacher, but a wonderful teacher. He ran his class like the real world. And I'm very grateful he did that because I was ready for it. And I have a feeling a lot of people are not when they enter the real world of business. Here's something that you need to start learning right now, and I'm sure Professor Rudd can help you. Learn how to estimate your time to do something. Then learn how to estimate how many dollars it takes to do an animated project. This real-world skill will help you advance your career, and it also can help you gain or keep creative control over your own work and ideas. If people you work for begin to realize that you know how to meet deadlines and you know how to stay within a budget and you know how to use your time and your talent effectively and help the company make a profit, then they are going to give you more and more leeway and more responsibility and more creative control over your own work and ideas. And you will be much happier because you'll be making sure that your work and your ideas are the way you think they should be. So, there's a reason to learn how to deal with the budgets. It's not very much fun, but it really helps in the long run. The next thing, show up. Be on time. Have a great work ethic. Help others. Follow the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. I don't know if you understand how important that is or not. I don't know any of you, but I can tell you that just showing up on time is huge in terms of being successful. And then working really hard after you show up and helping others, treating others with respect and kindness, the way you would like them to treat you. Sometimes they won't treat you well. That doesn't matter. You treat them well. Treat them as you would like them to treat you. It's important because you're building your reputation. It's important for you to know if you're thinking about leaving San Antonio and going to Los Angeles or to some other place to do animation, it's important to understand this. In any endeavor or industry, when it comes to products and the quality of work, There is a whole lot of skim and just a little bit of cream. It should always be your goal and your focus to produce cream, or at least whole milk. Whatever it is, you do the very best you can do. Even if something seems like it's just a piddle assignment and it's no big deal, you produce cream every single time. To do less than your best is a very slippery slope. And it becomes very enticing, tempting to just do something not to your complete best ability. It makes it easier and it's faster and it certainly is a lot less work. However, you will hurt yourself. Here's something about getting your ideas produced. Good ideas have friends and family. Mediocre ideas are orphans. If you ask people to help you with something you're working on, and people are positive, are very open to helping you, and very excited to help you, enjoy helping you, and do their best for you, you will know you have a good idea. If you have a really hard time getting people to sign on with you to help you, you need to look at your idea, because it may have major problems. It may be mediocre, it may be a bad idea, and you just can't see it yourself. That's a good test of whether you have an idea that's viable or not. Now, I'm going to get into something that I hate, and that is interviewing for a job. Thank goodness I haven't had to do that for a long, long time. I've been working for myself for a long time. I did work for other people for a long time, too, and I hated going on job interviews. I would rather have a root canal, but job interviews are a necessary evil. So you have to find some way to wrap your head around it. So I tried to look at it as a game. I tried to develop my skills in playing the game. If you can do that, you will get a job and won't have to interview anymore. So focus on becoming the best you can be at interviewing, so you can get the job you really want and you won't ever have to interview anymore. Don't be late to an interview. Be considerate of the interviewer's time. He or she may have had to shift several other meetings with colleagues in order to accommodate your interview. Remember, this interview may be the most important thing in your day, but it's not for the interviewer. An interviewer has a money-making job to do. They're responsible for making profit for the company. You are an interruption to that. You are not going to make them money. Do your best to make sure that you become a positive interruption. Okay, next. Make an appointment. Don't just show up. Be on time. Maybe even be a tiny bit early. Dress appropriately. You don't have to wear a suit and tie. Creatives get a little more leeway in regards to the dress code. But don't show up in dirty jeans and a T-shirt that has a message with a bad attitude on it. The interviewer wants to know that they'll be able to introduce you to a client or the big boss without hesitation or embarrassment. So there's that old saying, dress for the promotion you want. That's what this is. You're dressing for the job you want. Be very, very nice to secretaries and administrative assistants. Do your best to get them on your side. They have a lot of invisible superpowers. They know all the tricks to protect their bosses from people who are going to waste their time or are unprofessional. And they can also do the opposite. They might be willing to squeeze you in to see their super busy boss for an interview. I can tell you this from my personal experience. When I worked for big ad agencies, I always liked my secretaries and assistants. I knew them. They had become friends. They were colleagues. I trusted their opinions about their first impressions of someone. You are a stranger to me. Guess whose opinion of you I'm going to pay attention to. Now about your portfolio or your demo. I'm going to start just calling it portfolio, and you'll understand that if what you have is a demo, that's what I'm talking about too. Show me only your best stuff, 5 to 10 pieces tops. Try to show your versatility and range if possible. If I can't tell you're good in 10 pieces, a whole lot more are not going to help. The old showbiz adage of always leave them wanting more is still true. If you're in doubt, leave it out. If something's not your absolute best work, why the heck is it in there? One mediocre or bad piece drags all the really good stuff down. I don't know why this is true, but it is. It has nothing to do with numbers. And let me tell you why. It has to do with, if I see a mediocre piece and then a whole lot of good pieces, it makes me wonder if you have personal objectivity and the ability to distinguish your good work from the not so good work. I question your judgment. I question your objectivity. I might even wonder if the work you showed me was even yours. Over the years, I looked through hundreds of portfolios at the ad agencies I worked for. They went to me first, and then if I decided that they were good enough to be looked at by others, that's what would happen. There are two memories that stick out in my mind. There was the time the guy came in with the New York Art Directors Club Annual. New York Art Directors Annual is a very thick book. It's produced annually. It's a major competition for creative people in advertising. To get into the New York Art Directors Club Annual is very, very difficult. They get more than 100,000 entries, and they narrow it down, I'd say, to maybe 100 in the book. So to get in that book is really, really hard. And this guy walked in with the New York Art Directors Club Annual that had pages of paper clips, and he didn't have a portfolio. I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be great. And then he went to the pages with the paper clips and said, well, I can do stuff like this, and I can do stuff like that. It was a bummer for me. He didn't even have his own portfolio, and he expected me to take his word for it. No one's going to take your word for it. You have to show them. You have to prove it. Next, be honest about what you did in your portfolio, especially if you worked as part of a team or a group. Always give credit where credit is due. Lying, and that includes a lie of omission, is wrong. And if that isn't enough of a deterrent to lying, then maybe this will be. The animation community is really a very small world. It's not 6 degrees of separation. It's a half degree of separation. People in the industry talk. You will be found out if you are lying. Lies will come back to haunt you and hurt you, and you may never even know they found out you were lying, but they will. One guy made an appointment for an interview. We came in, and he opened up his portfolio, and I suddenly realized a large hunk of his portfolio were ads that I had done myself. I was stunned. I didn't say anything to him, but everybody in the part of the world that I was in knew who did that. I was fairly well known for my work on this account. So rather than accuse him, I said, well, so tell me about this piece. What's the background? What's the marketing? I started asking questions that only somebody who had worked on the account would know. He wasn't able to answer those things. So I decided to just let him hoist himself in his own petard. And I thought, he'll never know that everybody will know he's lying. No one wants to hire this kind of person. I'm pretty sure he never found a job. So what I'm saying is, people talk, and they can figure stuff out. Lies will come back to hurt you and haunt you. I have a little test. After I look at a portfolio, 10 minutes after you leave my office, I try to recall at least some of the stuff that I just saw. Just 10 minutes. And I also try to remember what my overall impression was. So your portfolio or demo needs and leave a big, huge, memorable impression. There are so many forgettable portfolios out there. 10 minutes after somebody's gone, I was going, oh, I don't know, I can't remember a single piece. There just wasn't anything that stood out. Sometimes you won't get a one-on-one interview. You'll just be told to send or drop off your stuff. This means your portfolio or your demo reel will have to do the talking for you. Make sure it says very nice things about you. Invest in a professional portfolio case or container for your demo. However it is that you present your work, make sure it's done in a professional manner. Presentation is everything. The only exception might be if you're a creative genius, and then you can put your samples in a grocery bag. This actually happened when many years ago, this guy who had set up an appointment for an interview walked in with an H-E-B grocery bag stuffed. I was dumbfounded, and then he started pulling out the most amazing work I'd ever seen. He walked out with an illustration job from me because he was that good. Have a nice presentation. Have a duplicate of your portfolio demo stored someplace else. Fires, theft, and floods happen. Your portfolio, your demo is valuable. It is literally your livelihood, your career, and you need to treat it as such. The interview and your portfolio or demo is really like a first date with someone you're really interested in. You present the best possible you so that maybe there will be a second date, and maybe that will lead to something great and lasting like a job you love. Now, if an interviewer asks you to do a test project, do it. Find out what the deadline is and meet or beat that deadline. This is a test the interviewer is giving you. This test is to see if you're really serious about working there. They're not trying to get free work out of you. They're trying to see if you can work in the real world and if you really seriously want to work there. Within 1 to 2 days after the interview, write on paper with a pen a thank you note after the interview. Put it in the mail or drop it off or however you want to get it to them. Mention something you learned or remembered from the interview to personalize it and let the interviewer know you were paying attention to what they said. This is good manners. Good manners make good sense. A classy thank you note could make the difference between you getting the job and someone else getting the job. And let me tell you why. A written thank you note stands out in this day and age. I mean, it's so unusual, it stands out. It makes you look like someone who would be nice and easy and enjoyable and thoughtful to work with, because chances are the interviewer is going to be working alongside you at the job. No one voluntarily signs up to work with someone who seems like a selfish, thoughtless jerk. Remember, the interviewer has just given you a gift of their very valuable time. Their hourly rate is quite large, and it makes money for the company. So they are giving you a very valuable gift, possibly worth hundreds of dollars. I believe that deserves a thank you note, don't you? Now, don't go on an interview without rehearsing first. Practice going through your portfolio or demo with an intelligent, honest friend. See if it flows, see if it sounds logical, see if it feels natural as you talk about each piece. Be ready for the unfair question. Interviewers have all these things, these little pet questions. They're unfair. It's like one of the ones I heard the most frequently is, what is your biggest fault or flaw? My sense of humor saved me. I said, oh, I am a workaholic. I just work all the time. I cannot stop myself. It made the interviewer laugh. Things went very well after that. It's highly unlikely an interviewer is going to tell you the truth about what you're doing right or wrong in the interview. So you should write down your impressions of how things went and what they said and how they reacted to each piece in the portfolio. Do this immediately after the interview is over. Immediately. And write it down and keep those notes. After enough interviews, you'll start to see a pattern of where you can improve. Certain interviewers are going to say certain things. There's going to be a consistent thing happening. You'll be able to figure out where the weak points are in your presentation or in your portfolio and where the strong points are. You can really focus on the strong. So do it right after the interview, because I know you think you'll remember it 3 days later, but you won't. And especially after enough interviews, they all kind of blend into each other. So do it right after the interview is over. Get ready for rejection. Handle it gracefully and professionally with as little loss of self-esteem as you possibly can manage. Most of it will have nothing to do with you. Sometimes you won't get the job you're worthy of because you're not friends or related to the right person. Sometimes job interviews are just bad at their jobs. They don't know what they're doing. They end up interviewing something they really are not good at. Sometimes they don't actually have any job openings, but the company has a policy of interviewing everyone anyway. Sometimes it's because there are only so many jobs in your field, and there are always more applicants than there are job openings. But if you approach job interviewing like a full-time 9-to-5 job, you might find a job when no one else seems to be able to. You really need to push yourself on this. Keep out the controversial and or potentially offensive stuff out of your portfolio or demo. You've already got enough stuff like inexperience and a lack of professional credibility working against you. Don't add strikes against yourself. Do your homework before the interview. Learn about the company's past and present projects. Ask intelligent questions about them. If any of these projects inspired you or informed your own work, mention that. But be honest and genuine and authentic about what you say. Don't be a fake or a suck-up. A sneaky strategy. Interview first at the places you'd least like to work. Practice on them so you'll have your interviewing style down and perfected by the time you interview at the place where you really want to work. Here is something you need to think about long term. You will get good experiences and good samples for your portfolio or demo working at a good place, and you'll get mediocre experience and samples at a mediocre place. It's the difference that can get your career moving forward or stall it. It's almost impossible to do great work at bad places for a variety of sad, depressing reasons. Don't waste years at a place where you only get to do mediocre stuff and never have any way of making your portfolio better. So look for the good places. Sometimes the good places will offer less money than the bad places for a reason. The bad places can't get people to work for them otherwise. So if a good place offers you a job, take the good job with the bad money. If you're good and you work hard, you will rise in the ranks and make more money pretty soon. Put your name and contact info on every single sample you show someone. Put that info on the outside of your portfolio or demo, and then on the inside of your portfolio demo, and put it on the demo itself with contact information. Sometimes an interviewer will see many, many people in a relatively short amount of time. Dozens of portfolios or demos might get stacked up together. Wouldn't it really suck if someone else got the job because the interviewer got confused and thought your work was done by one of your competitors? Learn to network. Learn how to leverage. Try to turn each interview into another opportunity. In addition to a digital resume, do a resume on a single sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, something that the interviewer can write notes on and can put in a regular file folder. Make your resume sound and look like your own unique personality. Use all your own best visual and conceptual skills. After you've created your resume, proof it. Proof it again. Then get somebody else who has good grammar, spelling, and punctuation skills to prove it. The interviewer who will read it wants to know that you pay attention to detail when it comes to work and being professional. Your resume is the first evidence of that. In your entry-level jobs in animation, you'll be doing a lot of grunt work, a lot of detail work. And you have to get it right because it's important. And you have to remember to do a whole bunch of little things. They may seem like little to you at the time, but they're really big. So proof everything that represents you, everything. When you're at the interview, listen to any industry gossip or news that the interviewer may tell you. But don't pass it on. Don't gossip. And don't tell them what you heard from someone at another interview. You don't know who's related to who. You don't know who's married to who. You don't know who's worked someplace else and has friends there. And gossip could come back to bite you. I've known some interviewers who plant fake info, and they say, don't tell anybody this, but to see how discreet or indiscreet an interviewee is. However, if you do hear something juicy in an interview, rumor has it, Studio X down the street is about to get a green light on a big feature film and they'll be hiring. Then make good use of that gossip. Try to get an interview at Studio X. Keep the contents of your portfolio or demo upgraded and current and fresh and clean. No one will be interested in hiring someone whose portfolio or demo looks like it's been rejected and manhandled a zillion times. No one wants to hire a reject. Come up with new pieces for your portfolio or demo whenever you can. When it comes to time for you to be the interviewer, pass all this advice on to those who are just entering the business. In other words, pay it forward. It's just good karma.
You've been listening to the voice of Becky Benavides, and Becky asked that I relay one last point to you in relation to working with lesser companies. She wanted me to make sure to tell you, if you don't get better, you get worse. Thanks for watching.